please.
Okay. So good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to this program on endocrine hygiene. I am Dr. M.N. Satyavani, an endocrinologist from Hyderabad, and I have with me Dr. Mayur Agrawal from Bhopal. He is the co-rapporteur. And first of all, a very happy Doctor's Day to you all. And we are doing this program because we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis, who is the father of hygiene. And before we actually proceed into the actual meeting, I would like to request the President ESI, Dr. Ganpati Bantwal sir, to give welcome address.
Thank you, Satyavani. Greetings from Endocrine Society of India. As has already been told, today is the birth anniversary of Dr. Ignaz Philipp Semmelweis, who is also known as the father of hygiene. He was a Hungarian physician. He has been the pioneer of antiseptic procedure, and he's been described as the savior of mothers because he discovered that by good hand washing, we can actually reduce the incidence of puerperal sepsis. And that at that time, you had a lot of fatality with that. And that he told by just washing your hands properly with an antiseptics, you can actually bring it down to less than 1% also. So he proved that his actually, the hypothesis was later on actually tested, and they found it did have a great value. Today we have a lot of topics on this on hygiene, being history of hygiene, etc. All these things. Before I ask my colleague Dr. Sanjay Kala to set the stage, I would like to thank the organizing chairpersons, Dr. Unni and Dr. Sriram, the organizing secretary, Dr. Saptarishi and Dr. Nagesh, and the rapporteurs, Mayur and Dr. Satyavani, for making this a nice, topics for this, on this topic of hygiene, on this anniversary of Dr. Ignaz. Over to Dr. Sanjay for setting the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Ganpati. If there is one thing that the Endocrine Society of India has achieved under your presidentship, that is friendship hygiene, fellowship hygiene. So thank you for that. Hygiene is the framework of health. It's the foundation of health. Hygiene is also the end point or the destination or the aim or goal of health. We all want hygiene. So it is where we begin from. It is where we wish to end. And hygiene is required on the journey to good health. So hygiene is also a process for us. Let's take an example. If you want good health in a person with diabetes, you need good glycemic hygiene. So it's the framework, it's the foundation of good health. What do you aim to achieve when you are managing diabetes? That is metabolic hygiene, glycemic hygiene. You want everything to be normal. How is it a process? How is it a way to achieve a destination? Our aim is to achieve good cardiovascular outcomes. And if we don't have glycemic and metabolic hygiene, we won't be able to achieve those outcomes. So hygiene can be used in many ways in medicine. But endocrinology is the mother of medicine. Without hormones, we cannot live, we cannot survive. We have used hygiene in so many ways, as a noun, as an adverb, as an adjective. Let us see if we can use it with endocrinology. And for this, we have our team of experts from Endocrine Society of India and also from other specialties from community medicine, family medicine, and internal medicine. So we look forward to listening to everybody. Let's have a hygienic and happy and a fruitful discussion over the next hour and a half. Thank you for making me part of this program.
Thank you, Ganpati sir, and thank you, Sanjay Kalra sir. So before we start the first topic, may I invite the chairpersons. We have two eminent endocrinologists from our country. Dr. A.G. Unnikrishnan sir, he doesn't require any introduction. He's the CEO and Chief of Endocrinology at Chellaram Diabetes Institute, Pune, and he has co-authored the largest multi-center study of subjects with pancreatitis and pancreatic diabetes worldwide. He has more than 190 publications to his credit, and he's a former editor-in-chief of Journal of Thyroid Research and Practice, as well as IJEM. And he received several prizes and awards. And so actually, if we just do a program on the achievements of our chairpersons, I think one entire program it will take. So I'll stop here. And we are very happy for having you here, sir. And a very warm welcome to you, sir. Please project the slide of yes. So next chairperson is Dr. Sriram Mahadevan. He is a professor and HOD Department of Endocrinology at Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research, Chennai. And he is also an endocrinologist at Sundaram Medical Foundation, Chennai. And he has more than 90 papers to his credit. He was awarded the honorary national professor by IMA, and he is executive committee member of ISBMR. So we are very happy to have you here, sir. Warm welcome to you, sir. So the first topic of the day is the history of hygiene, and it is by none other than our own eminent endocrinologist and my friend, Dr. Om J. Lakhani. He is a consultant endocrinologist at Zydus Hospital, Ahmedabad. He has so many honors and achievements to his credit. He won gold medal in endocrinology, and he was the winner of ESI TISA in 2016. And he won so many gold medals in his MBBS and MD. And he's also the winner of API Dr. Vittal Rao Nadgoda for best thesis in MD medicine. So over to you, Dr. Om.
Thank you, Dr. Satyavani, for this very kind introduction. And first and foremost, thanks to Endocrine Society of India and Dr. Kalra sir, Dr. Ganpati sir, and the eminent chairpersons, Dr. Unnikrishnan sir and Dr. Sriram sir, for having me today for this talk. Now, I'm going to start sharing my slides. Yeah, the screen is visible. Yeah, so first and foremost, wishing you all a very happy Doctor's Day. And this is a beautiful topic. I think for me, this is personally very special because my mother is a microbiologist, and all my life, the theory of hygiene is what I've learned since I was a child, right? And I remember, always growing up drinking, boiled water all the time, and we're not even allowed to put our water bottles, face down with the tip on the ground, because my mother thought that that's an unhygienic practice from a microbiologist perspective. So I think this is a great topic to discuss, and this is today we're going to discuss in the next 10 minutes the history of hygiene. Now, in the next 10 minutes, I am going to take you through a journey of almost the entire human history. So it's a tough task for me, but I had a lot of fun making this presentation, and I hope really that you have a lot of fun listening to this. So we'll start our journey back in before Christ, right, in the BC era, and a lot of these things you might be already knowing, but a lot of things will be very surprising to you as well. So I hope it's a very interesting history if you talk about hygiene. And the word hygiene itself comes from Hygeia, who is the Greek goddess of health, who was the daughter of the god of medicine. So hygiene and medicine have a very strong link together. And I think, it would be fair to say that understanding hygiene is one of the cornerstones of medicine, just like, pharmacology, or just like, clinical skills are important. Understanding the skills of hygiene are equally important. Now, if you talk about the ancient world before Christ, there were some spurts of developments of hygiene. Now, very interestingly, India was one of the countries which actually led as far as the concepts of hygiene are concerned. And if you talk about ancient India, some of the earliest accounts of hygiene can be found in the religious texts of the Hindus, and bathing, and you'll be very surprised. Bathing is something which we do every day, but it's relatively, as a cultural thing, it's relatively new. We're not been bathing for many years until very recently. So thankfully, ancient India understood the importance of bathing, and bathing was one of the 5 nitya karmas or daily duties in Hinduism, and not performing it was considered a sin according to some scriptures. So ancient India did understand the importance of taking a bath. Whereas, if you talk about Greeks and Romans, the Greeks and Romans loved these community baths, right? So you have all seen this, if you've gone to Greece or if you've gone to Italy, you'd have seen this, large, public bathroom, public pools. This was not only a center for bathing, which was a part of hygiene, but this was also a place where, there's a lot of diplomacy done, a lot of business deals made. So this was a community kind of thing. So community public baths were very, very common in the Greek and Roman times. Now, if you talk about some other civilizations, again, we talk about China, where the first toilet paper actually came from China. And if you talk about pumice stones were used in the past like soaps, and pumice is even today considered to be one of the ways of cleaning yourself. And the Egyptians were the people who actually pioneered cleaning the teeth, and it was very popular, to keep good dental hygiene during that era of the world. So this is the origins of the hygiene in the ancient world. Now we'll take a journey to 1500s. So in the 1500s, this was known as the Elizabethan Era, and this was the time of Elizabeth I. Now, as far as hygiene is concerned, perhaps this was the worst time in history of human civilization as far as hygiene was concerned. This at this point of time, things were so bad that there was no water treatment plant. So water was so dirty and considered unfit to drink. And people, including children, you'll be surprised, people, including children, often drank wine and ale for most part, right? Because the water was not safe to drink. Now, if you read the Game of Thrones, if you're a big fan of Game of Thrones like me, or like Dr. Nagesh, who is here, or if you read some of this medieval history, you often find people going to places, ale houses, to drink ale, and you'll be always surprised. They're drinking ale. They're not drinking water, right? Because water was never very fit to drink. So that was one of the striking features there. And again, during the medieval times, there were bathhouses, but then bathhouses were frowned upon by the Catholic Church. They often felt that apart from spreading diseases, they would also spread some other illegal activities. And I understand, and I hope you understand what you mean by that. So it was something which was not really considered to be very a great idea, and it was often frowned upon by the the medieval church. And if you talk about bathing per se, the lower citizens would often bath once about 2 or 3 times a year, right? So that and including the royalty who could actually afford bathing, they would also bath maybe once or twice around a month, including Queen Elizabeth, who would often had long baths, but she would bath about once a month or so. So bathing was considered to be an optional activity. But the successor to Queen Elizabeth I is this famous guy called James VI, and this guy never took a bath in his life, right? Never took a bath. That's what the accounts tell us, and this is the monarch who would never bath. I'm sure people around him might have had some kind of olfactory adaptation to him, because not bathing at all, and he had actually some form of hysteria, some form of aversion to bathing, and in fact actually felt that bathing is something bad, right? So he would not bath at all. And this was the Elizabethan era, right? So not a very great time as far as hygiene is concerned, right? And then we go to the 1800s. Now the 1800s is a period when actually the development of the progress in hygiene actually took place. So this century was the most important century for development of the hygiene hypothesis and the hygiene per se. So in 1800s, the first big name was Ignaz Semmelweis, whose birthday we are celebrating today. Dr. Ganpati already gave you a very detailed introduction of Dr. Ignaz. He's also called the savior of mothers. And he did something very simple, very simple. What he did was he just asked people to wash their hands, just washing the hands. And who would have thought that this small act of just washing your hands would have such far-reaching consequences so as to reduce peripartum deaths. And, he in fact published a lot of these things. And you'd be surprised, this simple act was also found, this was also, there's a lot of resistance to this simple thing as well. So even though this seems very second nature to us, every child who comes home after playing in the mud knows that he has to clean his hand, wash his hands. This is what every mother says to every child. Whether your mother is a microbiologist or not, I'm sure every mother would tell you to wash your hands. But this was something which was not really practiced all the time in that period. And what it really tells me, to me, what it tells is some of the most greatest invention of humankind are the most simplest of inventions. Most simple things, right, have changed history to a huge extent, right? And this is one such example of a very simple thing which has changed life altogether. And then you have Dr. Jon Snow, right? Now, not to be confused with the other namesake Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. We were talking about Game of Thrones a few minutes back. So Jon Snow is famous for being called, you know nothing Jon Snow, right? But thankfully, Dr. Jon Snow was somebody who knew a lot. He's in fact considered the father of modern epidemiology. Now, if you understand Dr. Jon Snow, he was like a a Sherlock Holmes of 1800s, right? He was an English physician. He was a leader in development of anesthesia and also leader in development of medical hygiene. So he has its hands in many places, and he's considered one of the founders of modern epidemiology because what he did was in 1854 there was a big outbreak of cholera, and he traced these cases, and what he found was that everything was basically because of handles of water pump which was transmitting this infection, and that is where the fecal-oral route, and that is where he basically asked the people to remove the handle of the water pump, right? It was such a simple thing which led to such in fact the cholera epidemic could be stopped because of this simple act. So Dr. Jon Snow, a big salute to him. One of the modern pioneers of both hygiene, anesthesia, as well as medical epidemiology. And then you have Thomas Crapper. Now, Thomas Crapper is a funny name. Well, he is not a funny guy, but he's a businessman. So he's not a doctor, but he holds a very important place in the history of hygiene. So much so that some people believe that the word crap, and please mind my language, but the word crap actually comes from him. That is what it has been said, right? So it's often seen in the popular culture. Basically, Thomas Crapper was the one who actually made the flush, right? So the toilet flush, which we all know, was again not something which came intuitively. It was actually invented by this guy called Thomas Crapper, and it was so popular. It became such a popular cultural hit thing. Just like a lot of viral things we have today. Often, it is said that the American servicemen who were stationed in England, they'd often say, when they would use these toilets, they would often say, "I'm going to use the crapper," and from that, it is thought that the word crap actually comes from his name, right? So unfortunately, he made a big contribution to the humankind by inventing the flush in a toilet, but unfortunately, his name got malaligned in that process. And then you have Mr. Lister, Joseph Lister, in 1867. Now, Joseph Lister is another father. He's a father of modern antisepsis, and he is one of the pioneering surgeon. He's a British surgeon. He's considered an excellent surgeon, right? So much so that this is the Victorian era, and he was the personal surgeon to Queen Victoria. In fact, there is a big it's a very well-known fact that he was one of the person who actually operated or removed the boil from the armpits of Queen Victoria, which is, I think, no small feat in that era, I'm sure. So from a technical point of view, as an exceptional surgeon, but one of his major contribution to the world was his practice of revolutionizing surgery from the means of using antisepsis, right? So he was the first to actually introduce carbolic acid, which is now known as phenol, to sterilize surgical instruments and to clean wounds of this patient, right? And then he also applied the knowledge from Louis Pasteur about advances in microbiology, understood the role of microbes in causing wound infection, and he completely changed the practice of surgery. From surgery, so you can see very interestingly, there are two people who in this both are have collaborative action in hygiene as well as surgery. One was one of the person who brought anesthesia, Dr. Jon Snow, as well as Joseph Lister, who brought to us the modern antisepsis. And these two things have literally changed the practice of surgery. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a big legion of surgeons today. Surgery would be something which would eventually it might have just vanished if you did not have these two people. So this is 1800s, and now let's come to 1900s. So 1900s, there was one big contribution which we must mention, right? Why? Because of this irony which is there, and this is Dr. Wu Lin Tay. Now, Dr. Wu Lin Tay is a Chinese, right? And he's a guy who is a Chinese, ethnic Chinese, but he actually did most of his education from Cambridge, and he went back to China. And in 1910 to 1911, there was the Manchurian epidemic in China of the influenza. And this was a huge epidemic. And at this point of time, Yulin Che actually pioneered the use of face masks to prevent diseases, right? And what we talk about mask yourself and masking ourselves, and we also see the role of China in this current epidemic. But the irony is that the coronavirus came from China, but also the mask came from China, right? So using a mask as a prophylactic apparatus was first invented by the Chinese. And this was an era which there was a lot of discussion on social and sexual hygiene as well. So this is an era of sexual hygiene. As you can see here, a very interesting cartoon which deciphers people to go through two sides. One is a hygienic, maintaining sexual hygiene, whereas the other is the era of prostitution and all. So this is the social hygiene and sexual hygiene movement. There's a lot of talk about sexual education, use of preventive care in prevent venereal diseases and regulate prostitution, etc. So this was the era, and this was also the period where you had the American Society of Social and Sexual Hygiene, which later became American Society of Sexual Medicine, which was first formed. So this is, I think, the closest we get to endocrinology, because I think sexual medicine to some extent has close relations with endocrinology as well. So this is the 1900 era. And finally, let's come to the 21st century. And I think this is the era where we need to really practice another form of hygiene, and that is digital hygiene, right? So digital hygiene is something, well, there are two aspects of it. One is, of course, we all have that habit of taking, our mobile phones to our, Thomas Crapper's inventions. You know what I mean? I think, and there are a lot of studies that, the screen of a mobile phone contains more germs than than perhaps a sewer. So that's the reality. But I think there's nothing much we can do. I think we have to attend phones when we are in the crapper. But at the end of the day, there's another form of digital hygiene, that is to maintain a little bit away from digital spaces, social media and all this. And I think all of us, you are listening to this, perhaps need to rethink our use of digital spaces compared to real life spaces. So I think this is an era which is going to redefine the digital hygiene, and perhaps again there would be some pioneers who would come with simple inventions which is really going to change the world totally. So this is my presentation, this is my deliberation. I again thank you for a patient listening, and I hope you really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Om Lakhani, for this elusive talk, bringing the flashback and recap of the history of hygiene, covering everything from the ancient time to the recent science, bringing the highlights of the timeline. This was really, as always, an excellent talk to hear from you. Thank you very much. We are already ready to wait, and I'll invite our second speaker. Our second speaker is Dr. Karthik Balachandran sir. He has done his education from JIPMER Pondicherry, and he is working as an assistant professor. He's consultant endocrinologist at SRMC Chennai. He's a great academician and has 41 publications in various national and international journals. And he has been invited to various national and regional conferences. He's also a blogger and social influencer. Welcoming you, sir, for our next talk on the spectrum of hygiene.
Thank you, Dr. Mayur. Can I share the screen?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. After that excellent talk by Om, I'll be telling you about what exactly endocrine hygiene means and what its spectrum is. Okay. So, this is the definition done by Kalrasa et al. Conditions and practices that help to maintain health and prevent the development of endocrine and metabolic diseases. Now, after reading this, I wasn't very clear what exactly is endocrine hygiene, where it starts and where it ends. So, to the best of my understanding, I thought like any spectrum, it must have a starting point, an ending point, and something in between. But everything must culminate in some change in the hormones. That is what endocrine hygiene means to me. So after looking at what endocrine hygiene means, while preparing for this talk, I just read a few articles, and boy, it was like looking through the rabbit hole. That was the, you can think of me as that proverbial rabbit that's looking down the hole. There were pages and pages of content. And basically, endocrine hygiene is so vast a concept that is so all encompassing that you might be able to argue about anything and everything to be endocrine hygiene. In order to narrow down this concept, we need to have some anchors, and I would start with WHO definition of health as my starting point. WHO defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. We need to have all three domains to be considered healthy: physical, mental, and social well-being. Now, before we go into what endocrine hygiene is and what we can do about it, it is important to remember that this whole talk hinges on this concept of nudging. Nudging is paternal libertarianism, or in simple words, doing right should be easier and doing wrong should be harder than the status quo. That is the direction that we will be moving towards. And in that direction, we will look at physical, mental, and social health and what we can do to improve these things and endocrine hygiene per se. When we think about physical health, there are three things we need to do: what we eat, how we move about, and how we sleep. This is Revelation chapter 22, verse 2 from the Bible. The leaves of the tree are for healing of the nations. It was known way back in those days, thousands of years back, that food and medicine are almost inseparable. And that is why today we have the movement of moving from pharmacy to pharmacy. And in order to improve the health of our population, we need to look at endocrine hygiene in these aspects: how to educate our people to get the right kind of food, how to regulate the industry in terms of food processing, what can we do to go one step ahead of the status quo in fortification of food, and just as I said before, we need to uh, make the good things easy and the bad things hard, and part of it is limiting the intake of tobacco, salt, and sugar. Some of the common things about food and school interventions include going to the canteen and seeing what kinds of food are there. Incidentally, the background is my school, Betty Seminar in Pondicherry, and we had a nice canteen. And looking back, some of the food there was not necessarily very good, and therefore some of the interventions can include teaching kids what is healthy food, the whole food cycle, going with a cooking class, which is an absolutely necessary survival skill for both genders. And that means going against the tide, making it important to ensure that every kid learns basic cooking at least, and therefore they understand the nutritional value of food. The next step is, of course, fortification. We have vitamin D fortified laddu to vitamin D fortified milk, but not all fortification needs to be food based. This is life-saving dot or Jeevan Bindi that has been pioneered in India, where the Bindi gives iodine supplementation to tribal women who are iodine deficient because they live in hills and iodine deficient places. So fortification is one such way we can improve endocrine nutrition. And the last is limiting the harmful substances such as excess of sugar, salt, tobacco, etc. One way to do that is by legislation. And by legislation, we mean taxes. We could, make it, we could add a sugar tax or soda tax, or we could tax the beverage itself or the portion size. For example, the bigger size tins may be taxed more. All of this has been tried in some countries, variable degrees of success, and they all come under endocrine hygiene. Of course, we could simply go overboard, and that there is India is a country where things can often tend to go overboard. People go too much in the direction of natural and all that, and that can mean a disastrous thing for some people. it's the idea is to draw a line that separates the right from the wrong, and it's not as easy as making a slide and showing it like that. It's a very difficult process, and that requires continuous education by professional bodies as well as individual doctors of the public. Next, after diet is the physical activity. We have two kinds of which. One is the conventional one, aerobics, weight training, HIIT and all that. And the second one is yoga, which is a bigger concept. Just like endocrinology is a smaller concept than endocrine hygiene, yoga is a bigger concept than merely exercise. It involves a lot more other things, and that is also something we can promote. One of the key components of physical activity is to move away from just individual responsibility to just walk or do physical activity. There have been walkability studies in Indian cities which find that by simple tweaks to the environment, this is a walkability study done in an Indian city, we can see that by removing the crowding in the sidewalks or making the place better for walking, the amount of walking that the people did as tracked by their Google Fit data dramatically improved by simply extending the footpath by 1.5 feet. That is the power of taking endocrine hygiene and implementing it on a public scale. Apart from physical activity and diet, sleep plays a very important role. And one of the things that disturbs sleep is the noise itself. Noise pollution has been around for a very long time. And what is new is that noise pollution has been found to have significant effect on endocrine system, including affecting sperm production. So, for all the guys who are watching this, you know what to do. Now, this is the beautiful city of Paris at night. Although it looks beautiful to us, it carries with it a grave danger. Paris la nuit it's basically Paris at night. It carries with it a grave danger, and that danger is light pollution. Unlike sound pollution or noise pollution, light pollution is not very well known, and it causes huge damage to the hormones, messing up with melatonin, cortisol, and growth hormone, and all sorts of things, and eventually leading to increased risk of diabetes, obesity, and cancers. So we need to ensure that nighttime is sleep time, no devices in bedroom. There are a number of things that we can do. The simple thing to remember is that nighttime is basically sleep time. Coming to the social aspects of endocrine hygiene, I will start with this frogs there. Nothing great about this, but the sad story about this frog is that it was born as a boy and it became a girl. Now, since frogs do not have endocrinologists among them and they don't do gender reassignment surgeries, one would wonder how on earth did this happen? It turns out that the frogs had access, or they were, in a way, poisoned with atrazine, which is an endocrine disrupting chemical that is all around the place, and it's a very common chemical, and that leads to change in gender of the frogs. So this endocrine disrupting chemical turns a male frog into a female frog. And unfortunately, these kinds of endocrine disrupting chemicals are all over the place. There are thousands and thousands of them, and there is almost no way to avoid them. There are two things in the world which are omnipresent. One is God, the other is the endocrine disrupting chemical. Consequently, we cannot say, okay, today I'm going to get up and go and avoid endocrine disrupting chemicals. The only thing is to try and avoid things that we come in contact with to be not damaging to our endocrine system. So to sum up, endocrine hygiene is a very vast, broad concept that has physical, mental, and social dimensions, including what we eat, what we breathe, how we sleep, how we live on a day-to-day life, what we see as screen time, how we feel as in stress management, and how we as a society handle some of the things that affect human life. This includes endocrine disrupting chemicals and sunlight exposure as well. So such a broad concept is almost impossible to be handled by one particular group of specialists, be it endocrinologists, be it politicians, clergymen, or anything for that matter. So ultimately, endocrine hygiene is relevant everywhere, and it affects every single person. Not just person, as I showed you, it even affects the poor male frogs and turns them into female frogs. Therefore, the thing to remember is that even though it affects everything and everyone, it's everywhere, these kind of things can make you wonder, okay, it's not my job, it's someone else's job. It is that politician's job, it is that administrator's job, it is that policymaker's job, it is that industrialist's job, it is that chemist's job, and so on and so forth. The true thing is to avoid passing the buck and to take ownership of this condition. And I am particularly proud and happy that Endocrine Society of India has taken ownership of this condition and is doing its job to promote more and more awareness about endocrine hygiene. And with that, I would say someone else's job. It is that politician's job. Thank you so much. With that, I finish my talk. Happy Doctors Day to everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Karthik. It was a wonderful talk, as always, as expected. So we all thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. Now it's time for the next talk. It is by Dr. Varun Arora on hygiene and COVID. Dr. Varun Arora is working as a professor in the Department of Community Medicine at B.D. Sharma Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences, Rohtak, Haryana. And he has more than 12 years of experience in teaching undergraduate and postgraduate students. He has more than 30 publications to his credit. He is a principal investigator of Smart Health, Extend and Impact Diabetes projects. And he has worked in liaison with Government of Haryana since 2012 and serving as resource person in many training courses and workshops across Haryana. Over to you, Dr. Varun Arora.
Thank you to everyone. And first of all, once again, happy Doctors Day. I would say we should always start with looking at the brighter side. COVID-19 has taken a lot of our colleagues. But again, I would see the silver lining in that cloud, that this is one disease where the repute of being a doctor, the pride, the respect that was missing in many years has came back. And when it has come back, it has also taken a lot of, I would say, toll, not in the form of health, deaths, but also the mental health, the family. And today, when we are talking about COVID-19 and hygiene, I would just like to start with a little bit of history, already been discussed with my fellow colleagues. We know the history of hygiene. It came from Hygeia, the Greek goddess. So if we are doctors and we don't have any medicine, let's think about what do we have in our hands. And I believe we all will say prevention is always better than cure, especially when you don't have any medicine for the cure. And history has bigger lessons, whether it was Typhoid Mary, whether it was Jon Snow. And when it comes to the hygiene part, even in Indian context, the earliest written account of elaborate codes of hygiene were in Manusmriti and Vishnu Puran. So our ancestors were wise enough that we didn't have much of the medicines, but they knew that there are infectious diseases and there are diseases which are directly related to hygiene. Talking about bathing is one of the 5 Nitya Karmas in Hinduism, and not performing it leads to sin. So the hygiene, the history, it goes back to centuries. But talking about today's context in COVID-19, why it has become so much important in COVID-19, because earlier also, every doctor used to advise common hygiene practices. But in COVID-19, the emphasis is more. Reason being, till now, we don't have any medicines to cure. So if you don't have, you have only one thing, which is prevention. Primary prevention, primordial prevention, and secondary and tertiary prevention. And when we are talking about hygiene, it is one concept which can be incorporated in primordial prevention, primary prevention, even in secondary prevention when the person is sick with COVID-19, and even in tertiary prevention when it comes to the mental health. Now you can say, why do we need to discuss hygiene? We have vaccines now, but how can a common man can contribute? So everyone in India can help build a COVID-safe India as the restrictions are getting eased out. And how? If everyone just commit that they continue to practice good hygiene at all times to prevent the virus from spreading, I think this is the biggest nation's duty a normal human being, a normal common Indian can do. Because if you have become a link between spread of the virus, then you are not doing your duty. As doctors, it is our primary responsibility to advocate these hygiene practices, because as the lockdown is easing out, people are forgetting masks, people are forgetting their respiratory etiquettes. And that is why the role of hygiene is of paramount importance, because today it is COVID-19, tomorrow it can be COVID-22. These practices will help in mitigating any respiratory or any other infectious disease. So to simple out, I would say you have to be mad and you will have to do the havoc. And how you would say? MA stands for mask. People say we don't have N95 mask, it's enough. Even if you're using a cotton mask, if you're using normal 3-layer mask, it is also very effective. It cannot be 95% effective, but it is 80% effective. So you need to wear a mask. Distance. 2 gaj ki duri hai zaruri. Distance of 6 feet away from each other. We have to follow these practices, which is now these days missing out. And then havoc. What is havoc? H stands for hands. Then V stands for vaccinated. You need to do vaccination, advocate the vaccine, because this is the only specific protection or primary prevention we have right now. And observe your health daily. Many people are just shying away from their normal daily fever or any rise in temperature or cough or any malaise. They are resistant to get tested. So you have to observe and go for the testing, because again, I would say a stitch in time saves 9. If you get yourself COVID positive detected early, you will be able to save many people from getting infected. And last C stands for cough etiquette. So this mnemonic would follow for all the common people and also for the doctor. So if you want to stop COVID, you have to follow this bad habit. Now coming to this, the most important part after mask is hand wash. After eating, before eating, touching your face, using the restroom, leaving a public place, blowing your nose, coughing, sneezing, handling your mask, changing a diaper, caring for someone sick, touching animal or pets, wash your hands. Some people say you may suffer from OCD also. Yes, it is better to suffer from some OCD than to be a part of this chain of COVID-19 infection. It is a good practice. Now, if there are good habits, smoking is a bad habit. Washing your hands can be a good habit. If you do it, your children will do it. Your family will do it. If you lead by example, your colleagues will do it. Wearing masks, washing hands are such simple protective measures. If the latest study, latest one of the survey done across Europe, more than 45% of Germans still want to wear the mask, even when the second wave is over, because they understand the only remedy, which is very, very beneficial, cost effective also, is wearing mask, washing your hands. So just these 3 simple rules: always wear face cover or mask, maintains 2 gaj or 6 feet distance, wash hand regularly, thoroughly with soap and water. I think these rules, and these are advocated by Government of India also. So, badal kar apna vyavhar, kare corona par vaar. There are many such slogans. Namaste Corona, to stay away from Corona. So now Namaskar is also a very good remedy. But why we should do it? Why we should make social distancing? Why? Because our healthcare system, the second wave was biggest challenge to the healthcare system. If we don't use protective measures, our system, you can see that can cater an n number of cases. But right now in second wave, we had more than 4 or 5 n numbers of cases, because the distancing was not there, mask was not there. So the message is clear for everyone. For college students, you say, if there is no social distancing from 1 case, after 6 weeks, there will be 1,000 cases. And if they are using social distancing only, from 1, there will be 127. So our hospital will not be choked. For even these kind of examples, that different audience, even this is an example of Kerala, and where they use the golas, you have to stand like this. For the societies, adolescent and middle-aged, social distancing, you have to follow such kind of mnemonics. This is hygiene. This is your mental hygiene. This is your physical hygiene. This is the real hygiene messages. Social distance champion. It is, you're not locked down and elderly. You have just said that message changes. with the different society. Even the corporate social responsibility through their slogan has said, yes, do hygiene, do social distancing. So when we're talking about 360 degree of hygiene in COVID-19, it can be personal, it can be social, it can be physical, mental, nutritional, and endocrinological as discussed, and it will be building upon this. When we're talking about personal, we say, yes, it is not only your, I would say, hand wash, taking bath, but it also taking care of your health, observing your health, social distancing, physical. You have to maintain good, rather I would say health, good immunity, and you need to take good immune products, and mental also. In this COVID-19, mental hygiene is one of the things which is rather I would say need to be emphasized a lot, especially those who are taking care of COVID-19 patient and the person who is in kind of an isolation or quarantine because of this COVID-19. People are taking 3 or 4 months to come back to their normal routine. Nutritional hygiene, again, which food to eat. There is, I would say, a bombardment of the news, immunity products, and so many things. But what to take, how to take, when to take is also a part of hygiene. And endocrinological, I think it will build upon taking care of your blood pressure, sugar, so many things included in hygiene. The only thing in the end of 10 minutes, I would say, we should and we need to learn from again the basics. From the time of our ancestor when there were less medicine and more of the principles through which life was lived. And thus, I would just like to say, those who learn from other mistakes are very wise. Those who learn from their mistakes are considered wise. But those who don't learn from others' or own mistakes will eventually become otherwise. So I think it is a time when emphasis on hygiene, primary, primordial, secondary, and tertiary prevention need to be given so that we can have better equipped for the tertiary, for the third wave of the COVID, and also on any other infectious disease which comes forward in future. Thank you so much. With this.
Thank you, Dr. Varun, for that wonderful talk. And now, because we don't have any questions as of now, I would like to request our chairpersons to reflect on the topics. Dr. Sriram, sir, would you like to speak few words?
Good evening, and at the outset, again, profuse thanks to Dr. Sanjay Kalra sir and everybody in the team for this great opportunity for an offbeat, I wouldn't call offbeat, but definitely the approach is offbeat. And all the 3 speakers, as I had mentioned even during our WhatsApp group, a small comment that I learned a lot, and these things, even though we read in the first few paragraphs of microbiology book or community medicine book during our undergraduate days, now we are relearning, and I don't think we have unlearned, but definitely this is a rededication to all those points, and we are standing on the wisdom and the great work done by those great scientists who have, by simple interventions, they have shown the way in the past. And as Dr. Kalra's, he has that Midas touch, and he gave a new twist to this hygiene. And I'm learning how that spectrum of hygiene can be used in our endocrinology. And as such, I'm a great fan of Dr. Kalra and the way he, too many crinologies we have here. We have already, it can be called hygienocrinology, probably, I don't know. But definitely this has given a new spin to this whole thing. And endocrinology as such, as Williams' textbook in its first preface would write, if endocrinology is the backbone of medicine and metabolism is its interstitium. So considering in that angle, this hygiene can be replaced, this word can be replaced at so many places for us to, give a different color, flavor to the overall discussion of any topic in endocrinology. And I'm very happy to be part of this. And thanks again for giving me an opportunity to chair this session. And I'm eager to learn more from few more speakers on different facets of this hygiene spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Unni, sir, your insights on this.
So I really liked Dr. Om Lakhani's presentation. I always like when comparisons are made, and I liked the way he looked at Jon Snow because I am a big fan of Game of Thrones. And I also felt sorry for the crap allegory because he did a great he did great work, but he never realized that, you know, this word would come. But I think it's making a comeback because now you have Crappuccino, you know. Crappuccino is the fecal transplant of microbes that's been coming up. So maybe this crap may come back into a better sounding terminology. So I wish that all the best. It's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you,
I
sir.
loved also Dr. Karthik Balachandran's presentation. I'm a big believer in the nudge hypothesis because if a population is nudged in the direction of health, that could mean better health options. So the only problem with the nudge hypothesis is if you nudge too much, you impinge on the freedom of choice. But if you don't nudge, the population is pushed down into lack of health. For example, if you make smoking expensive, that's a good nudge because that prevents people from smoking. But if somebody says, oh, I have the freedom to smoke, so don't push me in that direction. But if you smoke, you are not only harming yourself, you're harming your family and others. So both sides, but I really love the way the nudge hypothesis and the other aspects were talked about by Dr. Karthik Balachandran and also Dr. Varun Arora. I enjoyed listening to him. His, very nice. I really liked the way he talked about that social distancing and social dancing, you know. So I think it's very important that these are also concepts of hygiene in today's world. And all the three speakers used wonderful allegories, imagery, conjured up new meanings to the concept of endocrine hygiene. And it was eye-opening to me. Thank you so much, Dr. Om Lakhani, Dr. Karthik, and Dr. Varun Arora. Really fantastic.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request Dr. Mayur Agrawal to take the proceedings further.
Thank you, Dr. Satyavani. We don't have any questions, so we'll move on to the next speaker. For the next talk on the laughter and hygiene, we have two speakers with us. Dr. M.V. Rama Mohan, he is an endocrinologist. He has done his DM from Andhra Medical College, Visakhapatnam. He is practicing as a consultant endocrinologist in Nellore at Diabetes and Endocrine Clinic, Apollo Super Specialty Hospital, and ISRO Hospital. He's a great orator and speaker. The other speaker we have Dr. V.V. Ram Mohan Kumar sir. Dr. V.V. Ram Kumar sir, he is an IDF scholar. He was past president of Andhra Pradesh Diabetes Federation. He is a recipient of various awards, including the National Award in Diabetes Awareness. He is a certified trainer for diabetes educator. He is also founder of Comedy Club Guntur, and he is a happiness and health coach. So I welcome both the speaker. The topic for the talk is laughter and hygiene. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mayur. It's indeed a pleasure to be with all eminent endocrinologists. And for me, it's indeed very happy event to celebrate World Hygiene Day today. And happy Doctors Day to all of you. So we know that laughter and hygiene, at the end of the day, when you go to bed, the thing you remember the whole day is that how many times you laughed in this today and how much happy you are at the end of the day. So that the satisfaction or the amount of fullness the laughter gives to you is very important. So for the next 5 minutes, I'll be talking about hygiene as today's topic is about hygiene. In order to have hygiene, it is like physical hygiene and psychological hygiene. In the psychological hygiene part, the laughter or the humor takes place, an enormous amount of happiness or psychological well-being is maintained by the laughter and humor part. And the word euthymia is that a state of positive mental and psychological well-being which is needed to be happy. So everybody works, everybody does their work, everybody earns money, everybody practices, everybody has their own family. But how much mentally, how much happiness you are at the end of the day carries a much So nowadays we are in a world of so much of stress, so much of sorrow, so much of all the difficulties which we are facing. But how to come out of it, how much positive mental health or psychological well-being you are having is at most important. This concept also is important in routine clinical practice, improve the quality of life and coping skills in patients with type 2 diabetic patients. We know that type 2 diabetes mellitus patients, how much stress they are having. So yesterday I had a 22-year-old male patient who was obese with BMI of 28 with high blood sugars, and I was literally weeping in front of me. Doctor, I am just 22 and I want to continue my drugs till I die. So I don't have an answer. I don't have what you say. I can't console his sorrow within 5 to 10 minutes time which I am spending with him. So that means that how much of euthymia is needed in our lives is very important. And the glycemic happiness should be there to all the type 2 diabetic patients who are enter your OPD. Mainly, you should be always smiling in front of your type 2 diabetic patient. You never talk any negatives, or you never talk about any negatives of their type 2 diabetes. You never say to them that you will get this disease, you will get that complication, you will get that, and they don't know about all the intricacies of the complications, and they'll be remembering only the danger parts or danger things which you tend to tell to them. And the communication is very important, which gives happiness to them, and then they get into state of mental well-being, and then that in turn leads to euglycemia. This euthymia model is publication by Sanjay Kalla sir, which is very, very important in our OPDs, and humor plays a enormous role in this euthymia. And we know that laughter, humor, or gelatology takes care of diabetes also. It upregulates NK cells, modulate ROS, influences vascular tone, decreases postprandial blood sugar, decreases catecholamines, cortisol, or the counter-regulatory hormones opposite to insulin, and lower CV mortality. So what not a lighter note of humor or laughter to the patient will give it to you. And nowadays we are having so many yoga days, so many laughter yoga therapy, humor clubs. Sir, our senior sir from Guntur, Dr. Ram Kumar sir, is famous for his laughter club, laughing club. For last 5 years, he is conducting with all the doctors in Guntur. And at the end of my speak, I would like to conclude that laughter is very important in everybody's life, and you should tend to make your patients also smile, laugh, and you have to pull them from their sorrowness, or you have to pull them from their misery, so that we make their lives happy. Thank you so much, sir. Now I give it to Dr. Ram Kumar, sir. Sorry, you're on mute, sir. Please unmute.
Can you hear me, Ramohan?
Yes. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I thank Dr. Sanjay Karla and Dr. Unikrishnan for giving me this opportunity to with you all. It's a break from the routine things. I will be talking about laughter and hygiene. Dr. Ram Mohan already explained the role. And if you see this, everybody is scared of cough and cold nowadays. This is from a serial called as Seinfeld, and my favorite is Kramer. And everybody is washing hands, everybody is scared, and everybody is doing so many things. We were all stressed out. And many of the people don't realize that we need to wash hands even before COVID. We should be clean even before COVID. Now only they are washing hands. That's why they are facing problems. As doctors, we used to wash hands even before that. Okay, this was an article published by Sir Sanjay Karla sir, me and Ram Mohan and Vijay Kumar. This explains the laughter therapy in diabetes. Thank you, sir. And these are my colleagues and my collaborators and supporters. All are laughing. I got this picture I asked them, we should laugh, then only we'll do that. Okay. And Dr. Mahadevan sir told me that today is International Jokes Day also. So let us start with a joke. And the best joke in the world, two hunters are out in woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing and his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his phone and calls the emergency services. He gasps, my friend is dead. What can I do? The operator says, calm down, I can help. First, let us make sure he's dead. There is a silence, then a gunshot is heard back on the phone, and the guy says, okay, now what? So you have to be very careful when you go for hunting with your friends. This is the best joke they say that in the internet. Okay. Hygiene. Hygiene is very difficult to spell. I was very careful to spell check because spelling is very confusing, very difficult to pronounce also, and it varies from people to people. So hygiene for someone is different from hygiene. We used to have a friend in our MBBS days. So he and my friend went to buy some undergarments, and my friend bought 7, and he says it's for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And this G, he bought 12, and my friend got surprised. That's wonderful. You're so hygienic. How you do that? He said, it's easy. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So it varies from person to person. So these are the things. And another thing is this Mr. G, he went abroad, and at that time AIDS was prevalent, and someone came and showed a syringe. This is containing serum with HIV patient serum. If I inject, you will get HIV. Otherwise, you give me your purse, I will leave you. This fellow said, no problem, you inject. Then that fellow injected, and everyone surprised, why you did like that? He said, I follow my doctor's advice. I am wearing a condom. So hygiene varies from person to person. Okay. Then, kids will be already explained. Mothers are our first hygienists in our life. And one kid came to my home, and my mother told him, I can tell you what you ate yesterday. Then he asked, what did I eat? She told you ate pizza because, food is on his mouth. And he said, no, auntie, I ate it day before yesterday. So it varies from, hygiene varies from person to person, but hygiene is very important. So this is we were using, and every one of us became alcoholic due to COVID. Previously alcohol. Now I use so much alcohol-based sanitizer. My hands had to join 12-step program. So much alcohol we are consuming. And this is hygiene varies from person to person. And he says, I received a complaint from your computer. You hadn't been washing your hands after the use of restrooms. So computers are so sensitive. Then, and this is how people stay with germs and other things. They live with them. There are billions of germs, bacteria, and microbes living on my body, but I still get lonely sometimes. So hygiene varies from person to person. And this is an interesting thing. Facebook friends are better than real friends. Nobody on Facebook had bad breath. So, when we have bad breath or bad odor, we should take care because this personal hygiene is very important. Okay, Sarah asked me to talk about mental hygiene, developing, maintaining, and promoting necessary behavioral, emotional, and social skills to sustain good, effective, and efficient mental health. So hygiene is not only physical, but we have to do mental hygiene also. Hygiene is austerity. I found out that austerity means tapas. So it was seen in Bhagavad Gita. So in 1714, worship the Supreme Lord, the Brahmins, spiritual masters, the Vaids and elders, when cleanliness. So even Krishna says cleanliness is important. So we should remember that cleanliness is very important, and it was seen in our ancient texts like Bhagavad Gita. And about hygiene, how we talk, how about mouth, that is very important, because whatever we eat is not important. My friend used to say, what we talk is important. So what he says is, Anugveda karam vakyam satyam priyahitam chaya swaja. So what he says is, words do not cause distress, are truthful, inoffensive, and beneficial, as well as the regular recitation of Vedic scriptures. These are declared the austerity of speech. I feel that This is hygiene of speech. We should remember that. And again, thing is austerity of the mind, means that is the hygiene of mind, serenity of thought, gentleness, silence, self-control, and purity of purpose. All these are declared as austerity of mind. So cleanliness, not only our body, but we have to clean our mind also. And laughter is the best medicine unless you have diarrhea. And some people call themselves verbal diarrhea, but hygiene is the best to prevent diarrhea. Okay, until you meet your patients and do these things, but you wear a mask, but you wear a mask with these smiles, because we can't smile. I want to smile with my patient, but I can't smile because of COVID. Okay, now I will show you laughter yoga. Can you pin me? Is it possible to pin me or something like that? Okay. So what is laughter yoga is? Laughter yoga is we can laugh whenever you want with no jokes, no comedy or no humor. So you can laugh whenever you want and Ram.
Start playing, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So this laughter yoga, if you learn, you can laugh whenever you want. So just I will show you how to do that. You can stop. This is very important because in our article, Dr. Kalra explained that you try to laugh with your patients. So if you want to laugh, if you learn laughter yoga, no need for comedy, joke or anything, you can laugh on your own. So laughter yoga is very useful. That is, we are laughing without any reason because laughter has so many benefits as Ramohan explained, but we can't laugh without all these things. But if you learn laughter yoga, you can laugh on your own. Okay, there are 4 basic steps in laughter yoga. We will start laughter yoga with clapping. Oh, ho, ha, ha, ha. Please do with me, you will have more fun. Oh, ho, ha, ha. Ho, ho, ha, ha. Please do it. Ho, ho, ha, ha. Okay, this is we start laughter yoga with clapping. And second one is we will do breathing exercises. We will breathe in and while exhaling, we will laugh it off. So when you exhale, you will laugh more, then you will have more stale air outside. It is very easy. You can do it also. Just take a deep breath. Hold it, hold it. Laugh it off. That is the way, because if you laugh, your exhalation is more prolonged. You know, the basic thing in any pranayama or anything is exhalation should be more. So you will, residual air will be going. This is third part. And another part is we allow the patients or people to be like their children. We will ask them to enjoy because we forgot our childhood. Because when we were child, we used to laugh 400 times. But as we become adults, we are laughing only 40 times. So we will do this. Whatever they want, they can do like childlike. But we will say, very good, very good. Hey, very good, very good. Hey, please do it with me. Very good, very good. Hey, very good, very good. Hey, that is how children enjoy themselves. And fourth one is we do laughter yoga exercises. We form a group and do laughter yoga exercises. You can do with me. The first one is, what is these laughter yoga exercises? We will incorporate the daily things into our life. So I planned one program for diabetics. So what I did was, you take your blood sugar report. Okay. See, it should be below 100 fasting and postprandial 150. But if it's not there, don't worry, laugh it off. What I observed is, instead of reacting to patients when their sugar is not correct, just laugh it off, then they will realize more. So just laugh it off. And today is about hygiene. So our mind is full of so many negative things, so many worries, so many. So what we will do is, you know, dental floss. My wife is a dentist, so she will show me how to do dental floss. Okay, you take a floss and do it. But what we do in laughter yoga, we take a floss and do like me. Take it, and clean it. So you're cleaning your brain, so your brain will be pure. So very good, very good. Hey, very good, very good. Hey. And next what we will do is, we will try to take the brain out. Don't do it seriously. Take the brain and clean it. Take away stress. Take away stress. Hey, hey, hey. And Don't forget to put it back. If you don't put it back, you will be in trouble. Very good, very good. Hey, so this is how we will do these things. And another thing is we should always appreciate. We should appreciate Dr. Unikrishnan and Dr. Carla for giving this program. So appreciation plays a role. So whenever you do something, you appreciate. So appreciation laughter, it is called. Very good. Very good. Very good. Hey, and another thing is if you want to argue with someone, particularly if your spouse, maybe my wife, you argue with laughter. What you say? You are wrong, but if you laugh, then no problem. So if patient's blood sugar is very high, don't argue with him. He said 300. You are eating so many sweets. So you have to laugh with your friends, but it is difficult during COVID times, but definitely we can do it. And next one is vaccine laughter. So we have to take vaccine, but this is not COVID vaccine, laughter vaccine. You take the vaccine, see, you are injecting, you are taking the vaccine and injecting to yourself. Take again, So this is how we have to laugh. What Dr. Madan Kataria founder found out that he had around 50 scientific papers which Ram Mohan explained, laughter, useful of laughter. What he says that if you can laugh for 10 to 15 minutes on your own, you will get all the benefits. But if your wife is there and you are laughing alone, you will be troubled. So what you should do when your wife is sleeping or your spouse is sleeping, silent laughter. That is also beneficial. Okay, so many types of laughter is there. You know, when we are kids, they should show like this. Ram Mohan will be doing to his sons. And you know, my mother, she used to laugh with her sari. Most of the women olden days, not nowadays, they laugh better than us, but now they laugh like that. So, and one thing, last thing I want to say is, thank God we are alive even after COVID, because doctors told us many friends passed away, but we are alive. So thank God by saying heartful laughter. So take every opportunity to laugh, and laughter has so many advantages. Thank you very much. Keep laughing. Namaste, laughter. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Ram Kumar sir. It was wonderful listening to you, sir.
Thank you, Ram Mohan and Dr. Ram Kumar sir. And Ram Kumar sir, I personally thank the organizers for bringing you here. I thoroughly enjoyed your talk, everything. I mean, I will enroll myself in your laughter club, and I will see that some of my patients will get enrolled.
Yes, sure.
That was really fabulous, sir.
I did it for some patients last week with PV Rao, and we had good response in Hyderabad. Yes.
That's good to hear, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So moving on, the next topic is endocrine hygiene, and this is by Dr. Ritesh Agrawala. He is a consultant endocrinologist at Amri Hospital and Narayani Fetal Medicine Center, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. And he has a lot of contribution to the field of diabetes and thyroid disorders. 10 publications to his credit, first prize in oral presentation at Assam Endocrine Conference, and first prize in poster at Esikon Odisha State Chapter. So over to you, Dr. Ritesh Agrawala.
Unmute.
So really a nice session to attend the endocrine hygiene and the laughter hygiene. And thank you Sanjay Kalra sir and Unikrishnan sir to allow me to participate in a discussing webinar. And rightly, Dr. Karthik said, when we search the endocrine hygiene, it is like looking the rabbit hole. A lot of things is there to discuss, but don't know how to discuss within a 10 minutes time. But I will try my best to discuss about the endocrine hygiene in a proper way. So, as rightly said, the word hygiene, it is very difficult to discuss, but definitely it comes from a Greek word, the hygiene technique, that means the healthful art, or the hygieis, that means healthy living well. And WHO also defines hygiene, which refers to a conditions and practices that help to maintain health and prevent the spread of disease. And most of the time we utilize these hygienes in the communicable diseases. But now the non-communicable diseases are also coming to it to be prevented by maintaining a hygiene. Then comes the word of medical hygiene, where the environmental cleaning, sterilization of equipment, hand hygiene, water and sanitation, and safe disposal of the medical waste come. And this hygienic practice have helped to prevent and control many infectious disease, both in the community and the environment. And the best example of this hygiene practice is the COVID pandemic era, where with this hygienic measures like using proper mask, maintaining a social distancing, and hand washing is able to prevent the coronavirus from spreading. So the pillars of hygiene during this COVID-19 era is the frequent hand washing, physical distancing, healthy and balanced diet to improve the immunity, appropriate medication, and good endocrine and vasculometabolic health. But the endocrine hygiene, I think when I searched literature, the endocrine hygiene word come from India itself by Sanjay Kalra sir and Rakesh Sahay sir, which says these conditions and practice that help to maintain the health and prevent the development of endocrine and metabolic disease is a way to maintain the endocrine hygiene. But this hygiene is a way of life, a strategy, as well as a goal meant to ensure the good health of the person. And not only, it also involves the all segments of the society, irrespective of the gender, age, psychosocial status, and every individual has an endocrine influence on their health. So maintaining a endocrine hygiene to prevent or to decrease the incidence of endocrine or the metabolic disease is the need of the hour. And this endocrine hygiene not only involves the endocrine system, but also it involves the nutrition and the metabolism, which are closely intertwined. And this therefore includes the diet related hygiene, activity related hygiene, lifestyle related hygiene, which provides the life stage specific promotive, preventive, and curative services. So these are the component of endocrine and metabolic hygiene. I took this table from the Kalrasal's article on the endocrine hygiene, where the diet related practice, where the food fortification with the iodine and vitamin D prevent the osteoporosis and iodine deficiency anemia. What a better idea to prevent it. Limitation of availability of the tobacco, free sugar, or salt will decrease some of the disease coming to the endocrines. Lifestyle related hygienes like increasing the facilities or encouraging the physical activity, stress management, sunlight exposure, minimal exposure to environmental disruptors, chemicals, and the lifestyle specific practice like counseling to ensure the healthy practice during the puberty or adolescence, contraception, preconception, pregnancy and child rearing, andropause, menopause. If we will give the knowledge to the different age group to the different person, at least they will adjust the differential pubertal development or the pregnancy related complications they have. Here the environmental disruptor are also plays a major role. And also I found an article where the acute and chronic endocrine effect of noise. So by decreasing the noise, which is also a form of noise hygiene, and I saw that with acute or chronic noise, there is a chronic increase in cortisol secretion, which is responsible for the atherosclerosis and immunosuppression. So by just only preventing or maintaining a normal hygiene, we are able to decrease the maximum number of endocrine diseases and metabolic health. As I have discussed about the endocrine disruptor and the endocrine diseases, most of the time the polychlorinated biphenyls which are associated with the neurological disorders, opsogenes is there where the endocrine disruptor like tributylin and triphenylene, which is responsible for weight gain by reprogramming the gene which is responsible for the metabolism, energy balance, appetite, and also some way to inhibit the thyroid receptor to causes the obesity. And some of the disruptors are there like the estrogenic and hormone active chemicals which is responsible for the carcinogenic risk, especially those carcinoma which are hormone dependent like prostate cancer, breast cancer, uterine cancer are involved. So by decreasing this form, here you see there are the hygienic measure we can able to prevent to this disruptor. So the pesticide like the DDT or chlorpyrifos, they are mostly found in the vegetables what we are purchasing. Children's products are mostly involved with the lead and the phthalates group of disruptors, food contact material, electronic waste, which are also associated with the disruptor chemical, which is responsible for the development of the different endocrine diseases. And the most common, if you see, we are come across with the DDT, which is used as a disinfectant or the insect killer in the farming place, which is responsible for the reduced fertility, urogenital birth defect, impaired breastfeeding, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. So if we are maintaining or giving a knowledge of the different endocrine disruptor and decreasing the use or make a consensus about this, we can able to prevent the maximum endocrine disorders by just spreading the idea of hygiene. So as I have told earlier, in the past era, hygiene mostly to decrease the risk of communicable disease, but now the non-communicable diseases are also using the term hygiene in terms of social hygiene, mental hygiene, emotional hygiene, sleep hygiene, occupational hygiene, industrial hygiene, and information hygiene to regulate it better. So to summarize, armed with hindsight and with modern technology, we should able to do a better job, but the key is and will remain hygiene. So with the proper hygienic knowledge and the proper hygienic technique, we are able to decrease a lot of uh, communicable and non-communicable disease to able a better life. The relevance of endocrine hygiene is not limited to COVID-19 times itself. Endocrine hygiene must be participated at all times in all phases of life. Attention should be focused on prevention and management of endocrine disease. And if we are able to convey this to all our patients and our communities, we will succeed in achieving a better health for all. Thank you for your kind and patient hearing, and over to the organizer.
Thank you, Dr. Ritesh sir. That was really nice talk. And this was indeed a very new, innovative, and a tough topic to talk on endocrine hygiene. You said very well about the nutritional hygiene, metabolic hygiene, noise hygiene. Also, the really burning topic, EDC, endocrine disrupting chemicals, was covered really well. Thank you for really nice talk. Moving to our next speaker. Moving to our next speaker, I welcome Dr. Vanishri ma'am. She is presently an associate professor at SRMC Chennai. She was awarded with gold medal during her post-graduation, and she has also received a Best Brief Communication Award and Best Review Article in our journal, IJEM. And she has guided research for many undergraduate, postgraduate, and paramedical students. She has done many research projects. Presently, she is part of 4 major projects, one by RSSDI, one by Ford Foundation, one by GATE with ESI, and other by ICMR. She has more than 25 publications. I welcome ma'am to talk on hygiene and COVID. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll to the slide share. So first of all, happy Doctors Day to one and all, and thank you, sirs, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. It's like going back to the history of community medicine as such, and then how is it related to COVID. So it made me think a lot, and then now after hearing to a lot of great people, so I'll try to present whatever small I can. So this is already told. Hygia was the Greek goddess of health, cleanliness, as well as hygiene, and her name is the source of the word hygiene. And she was associated not only with prevention of sickness and but also continuation of good health. That is the healing part. WHO, how it defines hygiene, though it's already told, I'll just try to repeat. It refers to all the conditions and practices that help to maintain health and also prevent the spread of disease. In this context, there was one thing like spread of disease. Is it only with contagious disease or communicable diseases? Maybe we can take like how we are taking the broader concept of the word hygiene. Here also spread can mean the numbers as well as the geographical areas, because initially it was thought the non-communicable diseases were only confined to Western countries. Now we know how much it is in our country, developing countries. So if we see the phases of public health, the initial was a disease control phase. If we see the whole phase of public health only starts from 1900s. So very late when compared to our history, development of medicine in our country. Here the disease control phase is from 1880 to 1920. So this is after the germ theory was propounded. So initially, our HOD has often told our department, the Department of Community Medicine, was initially called the Department of Hygiene. So even if you take in Tamil Nadu, the Ministry of Health is called Sugadara Thurai. Sugadaram is the Tamil word for hygiene. So, but here the germ theory, when it was propounded, every disease was only thought to be only communicable disease, and whatever efforts that were taken were to control all those communicable diseases through antibiotic development and other such things. And then came the health promotion phase, that's from 1920 to 1960. So that was the time when Boer Committee was constituted in our country, and people tried to start PHCs and sub-centers and take health to the rural and the next level. Then came WHO was formed in between in 1950. Then came the social engineering phase. What and all measures we can take in the society. This also took into effect the man's behavioral aspects. So because the NCDs also started coming up on a big scale in those countries. So the social engineering phase. And then in 1981 came the health for all phase. In 1981, this was propounded, and still the aim is yet to reach. And this is a goal. Then we cannot call it an aim or target. This is a goal. So always humans will want health for all. So, but if you take the literal term, they only want to fill up the gap between the rich and the poor, the developing and the developed nations. Here also, all the indicators are taken as only negative indicators, the indicators of disease, death as such, because still it is very difficult to measure health. As we know, health is a state of complete physical, mental, social well-being, not merely the absence of disease, but still we are measuring disease. Later, the spiritual well-being was also added to the definition. Then it was found not sufficient. Then they told able to lead a socially and economically productive life. Only a man is able to do all these things, healthy on all the four angles, and then also able to lead socially and economically productive health. Then only he was called healthy. So put it in short, sound mind in a sound body, in a sound family, in a sound environment. So here we can also see when sound family, the emotional aspects also come into play, emotional well-being or emotional hygiene, today's topic. So I just wanted to put the different concepts of community medicine into COVID hygiene, how we can see COVID hygiene from the different important basic perspectives. I initially thought like the primary, secondary and tertiary prevention measures, but because Varun sir already spoke, so I don't want to reiterate the same. So if we see, we all know all the concepts in the second year itself we would have studied. But if we see COVID from the iceberg phenomenon of disease, we have a visible portion where people with symptoms come and seek healthcare. and we have a big invisible portion where we have the misdiagnosed, asymptomatic, the contacts, all those patients and those who are susceptible, the children, everyone. So what we can do for the different phases, because hygiene now we have to see not only from the sanitary or the cleanliness aspect, but we have to say take into measure all the aspects that involve a healthful living. So what we can do with this iceberg concept for visible portion, so those who consult a health provider, one thing we all know is to increase the number of testing facilities, and testing has to also reach the primary and the secondary levels, where people have to travel 2 hours to reach a health facility just for testing RT-PCR. So we can take them to the rural and the secondary levels. And then we have to triage patients into test positive and test negative. For this, we do have protocols, and then the test positive is being further classified into mild, moderate, severe based upon severe different parameters, and then what are the treatments at the different levels we have. And then for the test negative but symptomatic, yeah, many people are now doing CT scans, and if found positive, there are some protocols available. But for all the test positives, what is very important is per protocol management. In India, it is really sad that there was some protocol given by the government, but it was hardly followed. We all know the mucormycosis, it is even suspected to be because of the illicit or irresponsible, indiscriminate prescription of steroids from day one, or even from asymptomatic, or even for test negative patients. I have seen prescriptions. So we have to implement, which is already in policy, per protocol management for those who are positive, to have a uniform protocol, and then prompt reporting of all the cases. So even today, people say only 1 on 7 or 1 on 10 is reported, be it disease or be it death with respect to COVID, and then the test being available at all the levels. What are we going to do for the submerged levels? Yes, again, increased testing. Awareness is very important, be it upon the vaccine part or about the social distancing. We can even today see when the lockdown is being loosened, everybody has even removed their mask as if COVID is over. So better or stricter implementation of the public health measures, the lockdown regulation and other measures, improving vaccination coverage. Here we have to match the supply to the demand, and a very important action is required on misinformation and facilities for quarantine, isolation, etc. Taking us to the next concept, the spectrum of disease. We have seen all this, but again, if we have once more look, because today's topic is hygiene. If you see from here, death, severe illness, mild illness, unrecognized illness, freedom from illness, and then better health. Better health is no illness. So all these 6, again and again, we only speak about disease, but we want health in 4 parameters. But when we talk about positive health, how do we measure? We don't have any indicators. It's the subjective feeling that a person has. So he can only feel it, he cannot report it, so we cannot also measure it. But that is the highest end we all aspire for. Here again, the 4 spectrums, how is it like? The mental health being positive and negative, spiritual, to be connected to oneself, and then to the divine, to the nature, however you want to call it. And then the epidemiological triad concept. We all know the agent host environment triad. When it goes off balance, any of the 3, we will get disease. So with respect to COVID, if you see the agent, now it is going for more and more newer strains, the Delta plus strains, which are becoming more virulent, more pathogenic, or more case fatality. And then the host susceptibility. Now we do not know the vaccine efficacy for the newer variants, and still there are a lot of people who are afraid of taking vaccines. So that might alter the host susceptibility part. And then in the environment, we have this lockdown and then unlockdown measures. And then what if the school reopens? What if the public transport opens? So that will change the environment in which the disease can further spread with respect to COVID. So we have to take each one of these concepts when we want to control the disease. Next concept, if we take the chain of transmission. So this link is always, we teach the students to identify the weakest link. But if you take like HIV and all, we affect the mode of transmission, which is just using consistent condom. And then certain diseases like vaccine preventable diseases, we go for susceptible host. That is the weakest link. But with COVID, just like we have for malaria or TB, there is no weakest link. So we are trying to attack all the three links in the transmission. So break wherever possible the chain. For sores, though we do not have medicines, we at least have, we know what is quarantine, what is isolation, in which we can prevent the cases from transmitting the disease to others. But still we have the incubation period and then the convalescent transmission might be. And then for the modes of transmission, of course, it's the most difficult because it's a respiratory illness. We are trying mask, the lockdown, social distancing, all these attack the mode of transmission. And then susceptible host. Vaccination may be called the only measure, but we have spoken all this time on hygiene, the bigger concept. So we have to go back to good nutrition, exercise, fluid intake, and last but not the least, staying positive. More than staying positive, free of fear. So people are so uncertain and fear about the whole episode. We'll have a revisit to history. Excuse me, just a minute. So if you go back to revisit our history, ancient, how the public health evolved. If we see after the germ theory, during the industrial revolution, the public health measures all spoke about this great sanitation.
She disconnected now.
I think there is some connectivity issue. Shall we move on? Dr. Saptarishi? Sriram sir, are you there?
I am in a different room. I'll just go and find out.
Yes, sir. Sir?
In the meantime, Satya and Mayuri can go ahead with some comments about previous talk.
Okay. So, for me, like how Dr. Om has already mentioned, I mean, the history of hygiene dates back to BC era, or he very well divided it into ancient, medieval, and modern periods. And I think most of you agree with me that our hygiene or our knowledge about hygiene goes back to our grandmother's period, right? So it is our grandmother who taught us, at least for me, the simple basic things about hygiene and all. So in a way, it was all nostalgic for me. And like we should use separate hands for specific purposes, and then We should not enter the kitchen with our slippers or shoes. So those are small things, but they, in the long run, they help us a lot. And that is what we are practicing now in the COVID era. And then he very well mentioned, ma'am, are you there?
Back.
Yeah, please
I'm
continue,
sorry.
madam.
I'm
Please
sorry,
continue.
I'm sorry. So if we revisit to the history,
we are unable to see the slides, madam.
Yeah, I'll share just a minute. Yes.
I think it is getting connected.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes, madam, we are able to see. Continue.
Thank you. So if we see again, the word today we are Department of Community Medicine. First, initially I told we were Department of Hygiene. After that, it became Department of Public Health. So this was after the Industrial Revolution. So all the focus was on the different disciplines, the growth of public health as a science. The epidemiologists, they doing their part. Statistics, they came with the surveys, the reports, the statistics, the birth and death reports. And then the sanitary engineers, they tried to improve the public health part. Public health administrators, lawyers, they devising their public health codes, all those things. So everybody played the part, not only the clinicians. In public health, the clinicians were not there. And then the people felt like this is out of our field. So then they changed the word to preventive medicine, where both the word medicine is there. So people felt happy, the doctors especially, we are also into the group. So this is mainly applied to healthy people, the actions affecting larger number of populations to prevent disease and promote health. So this preventive and social medicine, this was considered inadequate, and then they changed to social medicine. This involved care of patients, the prevention of disease, medical services, establishment of PHCs and other things as we told. So what are the roles of social factors in the etiology of disease? That was considered during this phase. And then latest, it is community medicine. And now again, this involves, in addition to that, the community diagnosis. What is the prevalence burden for the whole community and how to deliver healthcare? So these two concepts, in addition to training and research. So these are all the additions. Now we are again trying to mingle with public health, and then certain places, even non-medicals do it. We want to have one hold on medicine and then one on the community, on the public health. So this is a clear mixture. And now we want to go back to the original term, hygiene, which touches on every aspect of healthful living. So as I just mentioned, so the Department of Health in Tamil Nadu is called Sugadhara Thurai. If we go back to ancient Indian wisdom, so we saw how this hygiene concept has evolved over different things and how its application in COVID. So if you see the verse Tirukkural by Thiruvalluvar, it has on the Adhikara medicine, it has 10 couplets. The first one says, Miginum Kurayinum Noisayum Nulor Valimudala Enniye Moondru, which means the three aspects of Vada, Pitta, Kava, which are already mentioned in Ayurveda, the same thing mentioned by Thiruvalluvar also in his Tirukkural. If any one of this is going out of balance, off balance, then the person will go for disease. And another couplet says, Marundana Vendavam Yakkaiku Arundiyadu Attrathu Potri Unin, means the person will not require any medicine if he knows what he is eating, the time, the quality, the quantity, and then he eats the next meal only if he is knowing for sure that the previous meal is completely digested. Even 6 couplets in this Adhikaram on medicine, it's touching about only food. So Thiruvalluvar also says food hygiene, especially the eating wholesome food, hygienic food, quantity, quality aspects, all these are covered on the chapter of medicine. So if we concentrate on food hygiene, we can prevent most diseases, including COVID. Tirumular, another yogi or Siddha Purusha, he seems to have lived for 3000 years. This he has himself mentioned. Once in a year, he'll come out of meditation, give one verse, and again go back to meditation. Like that, he has given 3000 couplets. So in which he mentions Udambai Valarkum Ubaya Marinde, Udambai Valarten Uira Valartene, which means this body is the tool through which we can attain self-realization, which is the ultimate goal. So if you want to reach your goal, you have to first take care of your body, which is the most important. We have our Patanjali, he talks about Ashtanga Yoga, the last being Samadhi, but the first and second are Yamas and Niyamas. In Yamas, he tells about how and all we can keep our body pure, and then Niyamas, how to keep the negative emotions, the negative feelings away and keep all the positive thoughts within. So inner discipline is Niyama. So don't we think these two, Yamas and Niyamas itself, will lead us to all the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all well-being. Spiritual, we'll need all the other six, but for the first three, I think the Yamas and Niyamas itself, they are enough. So this has already been mentioned by Sir before. Bhagavad Gita itself says how to keep the Manasa, Vacha and Kaya. The body, the mind, the speech, all has to be pure for a person to have a positive health, holistic health. This is another thing. This is the book for Ayurveda. So I am not an Ayurvedic physician, but still I found this very interesting. As early as in 7th century CE, Vagbhata in his Ashtanga Hridaya has given these guidelines upon which a person will be disease free. He has to take wholesome diet and good conduct, treating all living beings equally, thinking twice before every action, speech, or even eating, and not overindulging in sensual pleasures, to have self-restraint. And then one who donates generously, whose mind is undisturbed by any situation, speaking truth, having patience. So these are good attributes a person should have to have a healthy life and have a disease-free life. There are a lot of it. When I read about this Ashtanga Hridaya in net, he has given how to brush your teeth, what are the tweaks that you can use, and more interesting was the contraindications for brushing, the contraindications for bathing. So even that is given in a whole complete detail in verses. One another verse from Ashtanga Hridaya says, one should not sneeze, laugh or yawn without closing his mouth. In another verse, he says one should not blow his nose except for forcing out the dirty excretion. Are these not relevant during these COVID times? Don't we have all the scriptures or the literature to rely upon? So I conclude. One more thing. We all know these terms, Argyam, Padyam, Achamenyam. We would have heard this in the Shodasa Upacharam when we do puja to gods. But in previous days in our country, all the guests were also treated as gods, and they were done these 16 upacharas. Of these, the first three are Argyam, Padyam, Achamaniyam, which means giving water to wash hands, wash feet, and then drinking water. So we would have seen in so many Hindi as well as Tamil movies, as a person enters a house itself, he is being offered water. So that's how people did themselves as well as they treated gods. But nowadays in our apartments lifestyle, we have forgotten, we only see in movies or certain remnants being left over in our religious practices. So I conclude my thing by saying, let us practice holistic medicine. Let us not look down upon whatever is already in our scripture saying this is Ayurveda, this is Siddha. No, we have everything in our scriptures, in our own ancient tradition. Let us fall back on our ancient tradition and let us fight not only COVID, we will win COVID and also any new infections that are yet to come. Let us practice holistic medicine. Thank you for giving this opportunity.
Thank you so much, madam. That was really a wonderful talk, very informative. And you very well pointed out that hygiene is deeply rooted in our culture, in Indian culture. So it was a very informative and excellent talk. Thank you so much. So moving on, the next topic, we have an eminent endocrinologist, ever inspiring endocrinologist, Dr. Vinod Kumar sir, guiding us about future directions. He is President Emeritus, Alzheimer's and Related Disorders Society of India, ex-professor of medicine and head Geriatric Clinic, AIIMS, New Delhi, and professor and head endocrinology, PGI, Chandigarh. And he was a member and WHO expert advisory panel on aging and health, appointed by WHO Geneva for 10 years. And he is a member core group for senior citizens, NHR Commission member, National Council for Older Persons, and Delhi Council for Senior Citizens. I think his presence itself is inspiring to all of us. I may be half his age, but he is much younger than me in his ways than his age. So we are very happy. It's our proud privilege to have you here, sir. Over to you, Dr. Vinod Kumar, sir.
Thank you very much. I am audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just sharing the screen. Can you see my slides?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. Can you, these slides can be seen now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to the slideshow now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much for involving me in this wonderful webinar. And I must admit that it was Dr. Sanjay Kalra who ignited my interest in the subject of endocrine hygiene. When I tried to search the literature and Googled for the subject, I reached the conclusion that Dr. Kalra should be the father of endocrine hygiene in India, if not in the world. So I think what I would do, I think as Dr. Kalra has mentioned in his paper, endocrine hygiene can have enormous dimensions, and many speakers have alluded to these dimensions. What I would do, I would just very briefly say something about what is a little bit of current hygiene strategy and maybe a peep in the future. The current hygiene strategies, I won't go into the detail because the previous speakers have beautifully alluded to. And this point that I would like to make is that I have tried to classify these strategies as traditional medical hygiene, which others have alluded to, like eating safe food, eating safe drinking water, and masking and hand washing and all those kinds of things, and keeping our mouth, teeth, gums, eyes, nose, etc. clean daily. The second I am naming as modern world hygiene. Third is indoor pollution hygiene. Fourth is emotional and spiritual hygiene. And fifth is keeping the hygiene supplemented by discovering new vaccines, particularly against non-communicable diseases, because endocrine and metabolic diseases are basically NCDs. So I think this all stands out to the fact that hormones are ubiquitous, and they are ubiquitous in presence, ubiquitous in function inside our body. They are all encompassing regulators of our physical, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual functioning. Now, this is strategy one. The point that I'm trying to make is that with regard to the conventional medical hygiene, is still very important, as many speakers have already emphasized on this point. But the point that I'm making here is that many scientists are still trying to find out if there is any link between the infection and the chronic non-communicable diseases, many of which are having endocrine origin. You already know that many endocrine diseases like diabetes and so on have are chronic inflammatory states. Obesity is a chronic inflammatory state. And the starting point may be an unidentified infection. The point is that our body is not able to eradicate an infection. So this unidentified infection may be there. Sometimes we can identify, but many times we are not able to identify. And this goes on to the chronic inflammatory state, which breeds diabetes, obesity, and things like that. And the other thing is that we all know that many non-communicable diseases like diabetes can get worsened by any infection. And another disorder called frailty, which has sarcopenia, osteoporosis, and other endocrine abnormalities, can also be greatly aggravated even by a minor infection. And the other thing you already know that hepatitis and HPV, all these are diseases because of bad hygiene. But in the bargain, the vaccines which have been discovered to prevent against these, they have protected us from liver and cervical cancer. It's very well known. And there are as I said, many scientists are trying to find out, although these are not confirmed, that the link with the infectious diseases, which I have noted down here, type 1 diabetes with enterovirus, obesity with AD36 human adenovirus, dyslipidemia with COVID-19 and severe HIV reported, metabolic syndrome with HCV virus and gut microbiota, and dementia has been identified sometimes with periodontitis due to P. gingivalis. So why I'm making this point is that if we try to establish some link of a non-communicable disease with an infectious etiology, we can at least do away with that disease to a large extent by simple traditional hygienic measures, and we may also try to produce vaccines against them if it has an infectious etiology. The second is the modern world hygiene. Dr. Ritesh Agarwal from Bhubaneswar has made a beautiful presentation about the endocrine disruptor. So I will not go into the detail, but I would only say that if you walk into a mall of a modern city, you will find beautiful shelves lined with cosmetics, perfumes, packaged foods, plastic containers, metal cans containing Coca-Cola and so on, or many other drinks. So I think we have to know, as Dr. Ritesh Agarwal said, that our food from these containers, plastic containers, the endocrine disruptors can leach out into our food. They can leach out from the metal can to our drinks. So they are all to be avoided. And we should speak out. If we have the evidence, we should speak out to the government. We should say that there has to be some manufacturing control of these offending items which has endocrine disruptors. And endocrine disruptors, as Dr. Agarwal said, they can give rise to a lot of disturbance in the hormonal balance and can lead to a variety of diseases. I'm not going to tell you further about this. And last thing that I would like to say, that these perfumes and all kinds of things that we are bringing in our homes, fragrant soaps and antiseptic soaps with a lot of scent, a good smell and all that, what we are bringing, they are adding to the bad dust in our invisible bad dust in our household. And they are also decreasing the quality of indoor air in our house. So that I think, and it makes our breathing quality is poor. So the third is a continuation, the third strategy is a continuation of modern world hygiene, and that is fighting indoor pollution due to its link with chronic inflammatory disease. As you very well know, any pollution is associated with inflammatory diseases like diabetes. I am not naming non-endocrine disease, but many non-endocrine diseases as well. And there is something called sick building syndrome. Many people, especially the senior citizens, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, they are holed up in their houses, and many of them are suffering from mild symptoms of red eye, headache, body pains, and sometimes nose running and things and fatigue. This is sick building syndrome, and when they go out, they feel pleasant, and those symptoms disappear if they have a choice to go out. So this is all because of poor quality of air, which is caused by a number of endocrine disruptors and by many other house dust, which we are not able to see with our naked eyes. So what are the strategies? We observe and continue to observe modern world hygiene, which I showed in the last slide. Proper ventilation. WHO especially emphasized, particularly in the Corona-19 epidemic, this proper ventilation is so important. We should not keep our doors and windows all the time closed. We have to have a ventilation. Some people are using air purified, and if during COVID-19, if there's a real risk of getting sick due to COVID, people are keeping oxygen cylinders and concentrators in their houses, and sometimes to the extent of hoarding, which is of course not desirable. And then the last point that I would like to say something about anti-pollution plants. We should go green. We should go more green. Greenery is very useful for our health, for improving the quality of air. There are 20 odd plants which are supposed to be anti-polluting plants. They have a property of absorbing carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde gas, and emitting oxygen. So improve the quality of air. So keep these plants inside the house, in the veranda, or in the gallery. And out of these 20 plants, I am just showing these 3 plants because these 3 plants were the subject of an investigation by IIT Kanpur, and they found them beneficial for improving the indoor quality of air. This is the 4th strategy, that is about emotional and spiritual hygiene. People have been talking about it quite some time, and I think rightly so, but I would like to supplement that these are hormone mediated. Hormones are controlling not just simply our organic body, they are controlling our psychology, behavior. They have a potential to improve our mood, sleep, quality of life, and in the process, they can mitigate stress and diseases, both endocrine and non-endocrine. The hormones which are of importance, although supposedly important, to what extent science has proved, we do not know. But oxytocin, love hormone, dopamine, feel-good hormone, endorphin, pain reliever hormone, melatonin, sleep hormone, serotonin, as well as by combating the stress hormone, cortisol. But how to get these benefits? So these 4 or 5 following sentences are the procedures through which these benefits of emotional and spiritual hygiene can be derived. By spiritualizing, not going into the detail, by socializing, developing relationships, friendliness, bonding, and laughing, by watching Mother Nature, a rising or setting sun and other kind of natural miracles, engaging in physical exercises, especially in group exercises, and even listening to music. And this is my last strategy, a peep into the future to some extent, and that is about non-communicable disease vaccines, the rationale of which I have already explained. These are on the assumption that instead of microbial pathogen, it is the cells, molecules, and proteins associated with NCDs which are targeted by vaccine by stimulating our immune system. As an example for obesity, Bake's surmises that immune system of these fat cells, it regards these fat cells as a threat and attacks them with WBCs. This can be exploited for vaccine production. Research is already on for vaccines for many endocrine-related non-communicable diseases like obesity, type 1 diabetes, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, smoking-related addiction, etc. However, as of now, non-communicable disease vaccines will not be for a population at large, but for NCD patients. Are these the drugs for treatment or in real terms the true vaccines? NCD vaccines are likely to be less efficacious because they are more of biological, they are more of drugs, and they are going to be more expensive when compared to traditional true vaccines against infection. But I think there is a lot of time, future, and on these vaccines one has to invest. So with all these strategies in place, I have tried to start from the history and the traditional hygiene. The whole webinar started with the hygiene, and I have tried to peep into the current and in the future. And with that, I come to my end of presentation with a lot of thanks. And this slide, I just want to explain. I would like to say that the senior citizen population is increasing by leaps and bounds. If we do not do anything, we are going to end up in a great problem from healthcare. And this is what you see. There is a small guy with umbrella because this guy is trying to save himself from the tsunami of older persons which are going to increase and increase and increase in the coming years. Thank you very much for patient listening, and I would look forward to a rich discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that enlightening and informative talk. We are very delighted, sir, to have you here and for listening to your talk, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now I invite Dr. Unni Krishnan, sir, and Dr. Sriram Mahadevan, sir, to share their insights. Dr. Unni, sir.
So I really enjoyed presentation by Dr. Vinod Kumar, and the sir's always pleasure to listen to, and he talked about the vaccine and NCD and brought it to endocrine hygiene. Well done, sir. Wonderful talk. I also enjoyed listening to Dr. Vanishri, who very eloquently brought spirituality, and she talked about yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyaya. So that was the spiritual aspect was really enlightening, and how she blended it with endocrine hygiene and science was amazing. Dr. Ritesh Agarwala also spoke very nicely about endocrine disruptors and endocrine hygiene. And of course, I really enjoyed the wonderful Jugalbandi with Dr. Ram Mohan and Dr. Ram Kumar, So I was reminded of this Tamil song in a movie called Sindhu Bhairavi called Kalaivaniye. So in the end of that, this actress Suhasini is smiling, but her eyes are full of tears. So he says, Kannir Perugya at the face, on the face, you're crying, but at the same time, you're laughing. So the similar thing, there's the singer called Jagjit and Chitra Singh. Both of them sung very well. And there's a song called, Tum itna kyo muskura rahe ho, kya hum hai jisko chupa rahe ho. And then, he goes on to say, "Aankhon mein nami par hasi labon par." So, as doctors, today's Doctors' Day, sometimes we are busy patients and we suddenly get a call about some crisis at home or something else, or we also have our own troubles, but we smile for the patient. Like Dr. Rama Mohan said, we smile because it's our duty to smile for the patient. And exactly like Dr. Ram Kumar said, that smiling for the patient causes some stress in ourselves, and it's important to release it with laughter therapy and laughter yoga. So both of them together, that was a wonderful insight. So overall, a wonderful meeting. I enjoyed every bit of it. Thanks to Dr. Satyavani, Dr. Saptarishi, Dr. Sanjay Kalra, and Dr. Ganpati, the entire team. Over to Dr. Sriram for his comments.
After Unni's brief summary or an elaborate summary, in fact, very little to add, and I really enjoyed that laughter thing. Thanks to Dr. Ramkumar sir, and even though we were not able to show our face in the video, frankly, I didn't dare to open the video, but I was reminded of the movie Munamba MBBS and all, where where I think who was acting in Hindi, I don't know, in Tamil it's a very famous movie, and I was reminded of that. And I think we should make a point to smile and laugh. That's the whole idea, and that hygiene that will bring you a lot of health. And I should not talk about my wife's talk on hygiene and COVID. I'm sure some hitches. Apologies for the connectivity loss in between. And Sir Vinod Kumar sir gave some really different thoughts into future of non-communicable disease management from the medical perspective. We are focusing only on nowadays, lifestyle measures, which is also the focus for today. But sir gave a different thought that was, and overall, as Unni sir said, it's a beautiful evening with a lot of new insights, and my thinking has changed differently. I think too much of academic core endocrinology, I should move away from that, and that thanks to this whole meeting today. And it was an eye-opener in that sense to me. Thanks to Dr. Saptarishi and Dr. Kalra and everybody in the team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sriram sir and Unni sir. So now I invite Dr. Sri Nagesh. He has been my friend. I think last year it was the silver jubilee of our friendship. So I have known him since we were in +2. So Dr. Nagesh to share his insights and speak a few words. Thanks. And I think he doesn't need any introduction. He is not only nationally, he's internationally famous, and I always feel proud of him to be one of his friends and raising him to several heights. I'm so proud of him. Dr. Nagesh, we are happy that you are here. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Achavani, and thanks for the gracious introduction. At the outset, when I'll be very frank about this, and it was Saptarshi who did most of the work in this. I was not involved because of my own issues in the general workup of this particular meeting, but I'd been...
Nagesh, I will interrupt you. I think Amaya did most of the work from background. So I think we should thank
Amaya, Saptarshi. They have been shouldering most of the burden of the recent webinars in the past 1 year. And it's thanks to them that we've had such a vibrant year. We've actually turned a disadvantage into a victory. We've just snatched one last victory from the jaws of defeat is what I'd like to tell everybody, because Endocrine Society has been very active in the past 1 year in doing both national and international meetings, and nobody could ever think that we could even turn this day of hygiene into a major webinar. That idea, I think we'll have to credit Kalra sir, Ganpati sir, Saptarshi and Amiya. We could never really have thought that the birthday of Ignace Semmelweis could lead to such an excellent webinar. We've had really, really good talks, and if I'd like to make a couple of suggestions. One area, I think maybe in future, this is like what Karthik has said, this topic requires more than one webinar, and I think we need to have one more follow-up to this. And if I might humbly suggest in the next webinar, could we have a talk about diabetes, hygiene, and the role of SGLT2 inhibitors? If you remember, when SGLT2 inhibitors were introduced in India, people were very wary about the risk of urinary tract infections. There was a particular school of thought, unfounded, but validated, but ascribed to by a lot of endocrinologists, that because Indians had toilet habits and personal hygiene habits which were very different from the West and involved the use of water for a lot of ablutions. The risk of urinary tract infections might prove to be much lesser in the Indian subcontinent. Fortunately, that has actually proved right. I can't really say why that has happened. Is it because of our weather? Is it because of our personal habits? Or is it because of our genetics? But the incidence of UTI in India has actually been much, much lesser than what we've seen in the West. And how we can improve this further and the underpinnings of this particular advantage could be one topic we could perhaps have in a later CME. And the other thing coming to core endocrinology, which I felt could be a topic, was what I always used to say as an endocrine postgraduate to the often consternation of my professors. I used to tell them in core endocrinology, palpation is there only in 2 Gs. We either have a goiter palpation or a gonad palpation. Everything else in core endocrinology is usually psychiatry except diabetes. And in this era of COVID, as far as possible, we try to avoid both goiter and gonad palpations. Probably we could have one topic on how to hygienically examine the gonads of our endocrine patients. How to avoid examining their gonads, and if we examine their gonads, how to do it hygienically. That perhaps might be a topic for the future in endocrinology, but overall it's been a great experience and it's been a huge learning experience listening to all you people, and I only hope this is the first of the many sessions we'll be doing on future birthdays of Ignace Semmelweis. Thank you one and all, and over to Saptarshi.
Thank you. So thank you, Nagesh. I think I should congratulate Endocrine Society of India for conceiving such a very important topic, and it's the product of parallel thought process going on. So there is more to life other than endocrinology, and we need to look into other aspects of medical health and beyond medicine. There are so many important issues like our hygiene, our friendship, our social interactions, our family interactions. So everything has its own importance, and we need to focus on each and every aspect of our life. So for ourselves also and for our patients also. I won't take any more time. I was fortunate that I was part of such a wonderful program, and I would like to thank Dr. Unni Krishnan, Dr. Sriram, Dr. Ram Kumar, Dr. Vinod, Dr. Ramamohan, Dr. Satyavani, Dr. Mayur, Dr. Vaneshri, Sri Nagesh, Dr. Kalra, and lastly Dr. Ganpati, and a special thanks to Dr. Varun also. So thank you. Thanks to all of you. I would now request Dr. Satyavani and Dr. Mayur for the final concluding remarks.
Before we go, I request all of you to on the camera and just smile for 5 seconds, because I'm obliged to take that picture. Otherwise, I will be removed from Laughter Yoga Club. Please, all of you, please, please smile for 10 seconds. That's right. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Nagesh? I will take a picture, please. I think. Okay. Just smile, laugh with me for 10 seconds. That's all. We used to do for 1 minute, but only we don't have time. Okay, please start. Okay, laugh for 10 seconds for world peace and world free of COVID. Okay, thank you. Please.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we need to do it after we conclude all the webinars. I think this should be made a routine.
Everybody looks attractive when they laugh, so we should give that inhibition and laugh. Thank you very much. Good night. Namaste.
Apart from laughter, there are 2-3 more things I would like to tell you, because I often write on spirituality and things like that. There is a custom of blowing shankha in the temple. You know shankha? Shankh बजाते हैं इस तरह जोर से. शंख बजाते हैं एक. दूसरा है कि flute पे people play on flute. That is also a breathing exercise. And shankh hai, flute hai, and then in Western countries they are using saxophone. Saxophone takes away a lot of your breathing power. So all these are useful, and of course laughing is a very cheap method, and it has many other advantages too. So hats off to Dr. Ram Kumar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
So
you.
with this, we have come to the end of this session. And personally, I would like to thank the organizers, the ESI, Dr. Sanjay Kalra sir, Dr. Ganpati Bantwal sir, and Dr. Amaya, Dr. Saptarshi and Nagesh for including me and Mayur in this wonderful program. And it's a privilege to be a part of the program, which has eminent endocrinologists like Dr. Vinod Kumar sir, Dr. Unni Krishnan sir, and Dr. Sriram Mahadevan sir. And all the speakers have done so well. All the talks were so informative and wonderful, and thoroughly enjoyed this evening. Thank you so much, ESI. Thank you, Kalra sir and Ganpati Bantwal sir. And Mayur, do you want to speak few words?
Yeah, this was really interesting and innovative and a new topic, very intriguing session. I too enjoyed it. Thank you, all the members. And also I would thank the viewers for attentive listening. And obviously, happy Doctor's Day.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
So on that note, we'll conclude this program. Many more programs to come, hopefully in the future. Thank you, everyone.